3, 2, 1. Welcome in again, everybody, to the Terry Bowden Show on the Auburn Undercover Podcast. I'm your co-host, Ronnie Sanders. Terry, good with you again.
Well, good to be here. It's great to be here after a good Auburn win. And you boy, if anybody didn't needed a win, those players, the way they played and the games that they played against a top 25 ranked team, lost all their 3 games to top ranked teams, 10 points or less, all of them, and come back and get you a good win against Arkansas. And I'll say it's Arkansas. Obviously, they fired Sam Pittman, and they're not having a great year. But if you follow them all year, they're about as good a team. They're about the best 2-5 team in the country. Quarterback is phenomenal. They were averaging, I think, 500, 7th ranked offense in the country, and Auburn shuts them down pretty much offensively, and then rode the foot of that kicker. McPherson had 6 field goals, and but that's a big win. Now, I mean, it's a big win because your kids eventually. I felt like Arkansas was finding a way to lose at the end, but that's what happens when you lose a lot of games to close. Kids deep down, they don't feel like they're going to win. Something bad's going to happen, and then you kind of create that atmosphere. And Auburn was got to worry about that, because Auburn things have just not gone right. Well, now you had which team's going to mess up, and in Arkansas after we replaced our quarterback and we kicked field goals, they had 3 straight turnovers. The next three drives that we didn't turn them into touchdowns. We turned into field goals, but it was a really good win on the road against Arkansas. They've scored a lot of points, and they gave Ole Miss a fits, and that loss they had to Ole Miss, and have been playing very, very well.
Well, and Petrino's always going to, he's always going to have them ready on offense. Now, defense is always an issue, but I mean,
they haven't played as well defensively, but if Petrino is auditioning for that job again, they need to show something. I mean, that wasn't his responsibility before, up till now, because he's been their offensive coordinator. But there are some Arkansas folks, because I live in Northeast Louisiana, and the second closest team to us is Arkansas. You're an LSU fan in Louisiana, but in Northeast Louisiana, we're about 10 miles from the border. A lot of Arkansas graduates and a lot of Arkansas fans up there, and they want to get. It'll be interesting who they go after. That's that job there. But see, they've had some success. Their history, they've had some successful football, and
it'll be interesting to see if Petrino, if he'd be the only coach I can remember that would, if he gets this job, that was a head coach at 2 different places, 2 different times.
Yeah, he has a very unique background. He's been hired and rehired, and he's gone and stayed in it. And I just don't know. I don't know, because they fired him. Sam Pittman was well liked. He was a guy they really wanted him to succeed, and he just couldn't. And this year he played pretty good, but they couldn't win the close ball games, and it just wore out on him. And I'll be interested to see whether they go with Bobby Petrino, because again, it was an ugly situation when he left last time from Arkansas, and all the mess that went on in that thing. But he keeps going. Sees guys that keep hanging in there, and after the Falcons and all the things that went on, and even the Auburn debacle with Coach Tuberville was here, remember? And that was quite an uncomfortable situation during that time as well. I do remember that, but but anyway, it'll be interesting. There's a few more jobs open out there too.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Petrino may end up, with Arkansas simply because this is not, all these Auburn people that want a coaching change. This is not
a good year.
This is not the year you want to have a coaching change.
Well, if you're going to get one of the top guys, now Auburn has historically jumped on somebody before they were on top. Even going back to Coach Dye, he was at Wichita. He was at East Carolina, and then Wyoming. And then I was at Samford, and a lot of the guys, Liberty. I mean, Hugh was at Liberty, and it goes back with they've always got. I think Auburn to some extent has liked that underdog kind of role, But at this day and age, with the contracts that you're paying and the buyouts that you're paying, you can't hardly go that you can't hardly go that route. I kind of wish schools would continue to do that. But anyway, Auburn, Auburn we got right now got us at 2 games away from being bowl eligible, And to some places, I know that doesn't sound like good, but with the losing seasons Auburn had, this is a critical game we've got. Now, we want to go back and talk about the one they just won to stay with Arkansas. But when we get to the Kentucky game, everybody must have got to realize that becomes a very, very big game for the next thing out there, which would be bowl eligibility. But Arkansas, great. It was the fact you got 6 field goals. There were so many things I take notes when I'm watching a game so I can think about it. And of course, when they, Jackson Arnold, when they benched him from that interception, he should, it was a bad play. I mean, he should not have. It's an RPO, and most of all know that Hughes always liked RPOs. Well, I don't really like an RPO down close to that goal line all that much, and all you got to do is not tag it. You can not tag a play because an RPO quite often it's tagged on the end of the play. Other times it's up to the quarterback to make that decision, and they bluffed him. They bluffed the quarterback, and he threw a hitch on the RPO, and the guy broke on it because. But you know what I said, that you can't stop your throwing motion. But as I would teach my quarterback, throw it over their head. All right, you made a mistake. Your pre-snap read was good. He was playing soft. But your post-snap read is what you see before you throw it. And what he was doing was breaking on that ball. He was breaking forward, and so then you can't. I tell my guys when they're throwing hitches or outs, and the guy breaks on it, go ahead and throw it. Just throw it right over everybody's head and take it out of bounds. Because you really don't have the chance to do anything else with it. You can't go to a second receiver or somebody like that on an RPO. But he stayed with it, made a poor decision. And now I will say this: I don't like. He was faking the ball carrier was coming from the left to the right, so you kind of turn your head to the right to the left, and he was throwing to the right. Even though you're in a shotgun, you're still kind of turning, and you get your eyes away from it. I'd rather be faking the ball to the side of the throw a little bit because your quarterback, his eyes are right on the cornerback at all times. When you're trying to make that fake to the left, you pull your eyes off of it. He pulled his eyes off of it, and it cost him. But if you hadn't, I think they yanked him. I think he got yanked for Daniels after that, and he took him to 3 straight scores after he got in. They were all field goals, but took him to scores. And I haven't seen the press conference or anything. I was traveling. I was at West Virginia, traveling back. But have they said anything about the quarterback? Is that a change that's for good now?
It certainly looks that way. I'm just, you can talk about this a little bit. How difficult is it to pull a starter? I know NIL makes it a little bit different because they're paying him so much money. But how hard is it to pull a starter and play the backup, then you go win the game, and then put the other starter back in?
Well, you build up the confidence your team has in their starting quarterback. You build him up in practice. You build him up in press, in the media, and now you got to come back and say you're not getting it done. Somewhere along the line, you got to do that. You got to make that decision, and you got to yank. And I felt they had to do it. I thought that was I thought he took 1, maybe 2 sacks that he shouldn't have taken, still holding onto the ball too long. And I thought he patted it and held it to a couple of times, but that throw was one that was costly. And the thing that happens now, Ronnie, your backup was a portal guy that was pretty daggum good too at Stanford. I mean, he won 3 straight champions at Buford High School in Georgia. He was a star quarterback, goes to Stanford and starts for them. And I think he had not just their throwing, but their rushing record as a running quarterback. He was a true freshman. He was a Wildcat quarterback, and then he started his sophomore year. And I want to think he had 650 yards rushing as a quarterback, and he's a bigger physical guy. So it's not like he doesn't have a lot of experience. And dang it, if he graduated from Stanford in 3 years, he's probably pretty smart too. So, but it's hard to go back. I would think, based on the way the season's going, and I think that was very key right at that point. When we came back and won that game, to me, it'd be kind of hard not to start him. I think he's not a lot. I don't know if he's got 2 years left or 1 year. He
3 years left.
2 years left, and he's got a pretty good resume, under him, and so I think you got to do what you got to do to win, and so he did lead them to a victory. I think it's hard to go back and forth. if it's clear that one's better than the other every day in practice, and it's clear that they are, but I think the kids are going to respond, I think, to that victory in that backup quarterback, in the way he played. And and this Kentucky game is going to be a pretty dang important game coming up. And if you're going to make it, you sure don't want to wait. You got Auburn's got 4 games left. You've got Kentucky at night at home, which is and you'll probably be, I think the early line is 9.5 to 10 points, depending on what bank you look at, what book you look at. But I mean, basically 2 touchdowns, 2 scores favored over Kentucky right now. We got to see which way the money goes.
On ESPN right now, but
is it 10? It was 10. It was 9.5 on FanDuel, I think, or 10. But anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5. When you get to that 10, that's a little different than 9.5 because you're talking about 2 scores. But still, that tells you something right there. Most people that are right now are saying, can we, that Auburn's got a chance to be a good chance to get a win. And then you got Mercer down the road. There's 2 teams right there because Vandy's going to be a tough one, and Alabama's always Alabama. Mm-hmm. So Kentucky ends up being critical. But again, the big win against Arkansas hopefully gets things going. Auburn's had a terrible it's a very tough schedule. Everybody they've lost to has been a ranked football team. I think I will say this. I think we still have offensive problems. When you kick 6 field goals, that means you're not getting. I mean, you couldn't score touchdowns, and so that hurts you. And when you can't win kicking field goals all the time, very often. And they sure did, but we kicked 6 of them. I think we were 3 of 12 on third downs, and that's why that's 25% on third downs, and that's kind of why you kick field goals. And then we rushed for 230 yards. I mean, we had a good rushing day. I mean, Jeremiah Cobb has turned into an outstanding running back. Yeah. Made some great runs. Had over 200. We had much better rushing than they did. Rushed for 230 yards. But when you got to the red zone and you got to third down, you could see the stats weren't good. Anytime you have to go out there and kick a field goal, those are the areas of the field. The red zone is the area that the defense, the defensive backs are up closer because it's condensed field, and you got to be real good at running the football once you get down there that red zone, and that's where we were unable to sustain drives. So again, that's nice to have a victory. Nice your kicker to be on. Great game for him, but you've got some games that are going to be winnable. You got to finish those drives. I think we've had a trouble most of the year finishing drives, and that probably goes back to the running a game and depending and believing in the running game and getting them there. Defense again played very, very well. They were averaging, but they were the 7th ranked offense in the country. They are good, and I think we held them to 330. Guys, they were doing 540 yard off a game, I believe, is what they averaged. 514. We held them to 331. That's pretty daggum good. So Auburn's still playing great defense and doing a great job with that. And then Rashawn Pleasant's interception probably got that. It kind of got things, finally got us back in, because after he did that, I mean, we after they intercepted ours for the pick 6, then we put in the new quarterback. We kicked 3 field goals, and that pick 6 kind of iced it for us. And so good defense.
The other thing, I mentioned DJ Durkin and what a great job he's done with the defense. He's going to get, and we talked about this a little bit before, but you look at the number of jobs that are going to be open.
Right.
He's going to get some, he's been a head coach. I'm sure he learned from his mistakes at Maryland.
Sure.
He's going to get some, I would think.
Well, no, if you've got a good DC, you have to pay him nowadays. I'm sure he's getting paid very, very well. And so it all depends if he's going to, it seems to me with the money they're paying, they're jumping on head coach. It's like there's a small pool of head coach. These people that cry for coaches to get fired, the pool of experienced head coaches that can demand that kind of money is not big, that you say, gosh, I'm going to pay this kind of money. This has got to be a guarantee. I mean, LSU thought Brian Kelly was a guarantee, and 4 years later, 3.5 years later, they fired and paying $50 million.
USC and Lincoln Riley. I mean,
they didn't fire their guy yet, did they?
Not yet, but
no, they're unhappy. I know. And you go, you know what? When you go to USC and you get paid $10 million a year, you kind of know what you're getting into. Yes. And when you go out there, you better understand if you don't win national championships or play for them, that's not what they brought you there, because they want to get back to where they are there, and so you can't just have about 5 NFL first round draft pick quarterbacks every year at USC. I think they've had the last 4 or 5 of them are all starting in the NFL from USC, and so that they're expecting much more out there. But anyway, and I think that's what happens to LSU. LSU is just Brian Kelly is what he left Notre Dame, and he came to LSU because he felt like he could win a championship there. He could get the type of quarterback he needed to get. He felt like he could win a championship. They paid money for him, and it didn't happen. He didn't get to he didn't win the SEC or get in the playoffs, and they said that's enough, and so that was another one that went down.
It's amazing what people are getting fired for now. I mean, you look at James Franklin. He won 34 games.
Yeah.
In the previous 3 seasons, and I'm pulling up Brian Kelly here. I believe he won
about.
He won 10, 9, and then he's 5-3 now. But I mean,
yeah, he'll be 9 or so. I mean, he's got a good enough team to win most of his games the rest of the year. But like I said, both those coaches are victims of the same problem. They're very successful coaches. They took a big salary at a big school, financially has the money and commitment that if you go there, you better give them that results. And that's, if you're at Auburn, you got that school right across the state that you better deal with them. If you're Alabama, you better not be losing to Auburn. If you're Ohio State, you better not be losing to Michigan. And those are types of things that you just got to do. You got to find a way to win the ones they expect you to win. They hire you to win certain people. You're hired at LSU to win that conference, to play for that championship. And so when you don't do it, you don't have to say, gosh, I didn't see it coming. I mean, we could kind of see it coming, I felt like Brian Kelly. Now, he's been very successful. I have no dislike for Brian Kelly. He was getting a lot more stressed out in his press conferences starting last year. You could see it, that it was stressful for him. And he's been around a long time. And but you could even see it was different. It was a little bit different halfway through last year and this year. And I think players can see that. I think players can recognize when a coach is stressed out on the sideline or stressed out at the press conference, and they those players, it's sometimes you got to be able to, you have to be a little more soothing to players. So they want to win real bad, and a player
they do what the coach does.
That's what they do. That's right. That's why I always used to tell people. I was a head coach in college 28 years, from the SEC all the way to Samford University. If I could coach where I want to, I'd be in the press box because I can see everything. But you can't lead from behind. You can't lead behind your team. Your team is not just waiting for you to call play or make a substitution. They're watching your demeanor. When things go bad, what's the head coach look to? When things go good, when things go bad, they're all watching the reaction of the head coach. And it gets harder as you get older. And I speak mostly about my father because they don't. A lot of people didn't watch him when he was younger, when he was very demonstrative on the sideline. Those last years, it was more of that grandfather on the sideline. And I don't know if you remember pictures of Bear Bryant, his last days, he'd be leaning up against that goal post, or there wasn't a whole lot of stuff being said in the older days. But I think they want to, you got to lead from out front, and you've got to be out in front of your team. And that's what they want. If you have stress, or you have you go into that panic mode, the players see it. And I think they get that panic mode too. And, so anyway, the LSU now will be. It'll be anxious to see who they go after.
It's a small pool. I mean, if you're at Florida, if you're at Penn State, you're at LSU. I mean, and you want to hit it out of the park.
You're all talking the same guys. Lane Kiffin is the hot guy, and I'll tell you right now, when Ole Miss beat Oklahoma, I had Oklahoma winning that game. 2 reasons: one, they got the number 1 defense in the country, number 1 sack team in the country, and they got their quarterback back. They played him and at home. And I said, Ole Miss can't. They're not strong enough on defense, I don't think. But Brent Venables will come after that young quarterback. He'll go at, and I think Oklahoma had a little better defense than Georgia, I thought. But Ole Miss, just got after him and got after him and got the win and scored points. And so I guess what I'm getting around to is that Lane Kiffin is a hot commodity right now. because people feel like what he's doing at Ole Miss, at a place like Ole Miss, which is just, it's they don't historically, they're right that one notch below the Alabama and LSU type level, and he's done there and made them so successful there. So he is, and I can remember, he lasted about 1 year at Oakland Raiders. He lasted about 1 or 2 years with Tennessee.
1.5, I think,
probably not 2 or 3 so they like 3 straight firings. He had 3 of the best jobs you could ever possibly get. But I think people don't realize he was so young. He was like me, my age young. And he probably and you can see how much better he's gotten over the years. He just improved the way he runs the offense. And I think being a coordinator for Nick Saban at Alabama then I coached against him when he was at FAU. He beat me like a drum when I was at Akron. We played FAU. And he had a better team. And buddy, when he's better than you, he gonna score as many times as he can score. That's what he does. But you know what, Dale? I mean, I can't. And he would be probably the first perfect coach for Florida.
Absolutely.
I mean, you think about Florida. They love Steve Spurrier, and Steve Spurrier, he cocky, offensive minded, and of course Steve Spurrier was a Heisman Trophy winner at Florida. And he would fit that type of Lane. And Lane has ties to Florida. And so I don't know. I would think they would be hot to trot. I'm hearing I think I saw Dabo's name being mentioned. And I just don't see Dabo leaving Clemson. But, maybe there'll be enough people getting angry with him this year that he says, you know what, I don't need this. And but I don't know if you would even consider. Now you got to wonder, has he got to that point where he's not on top of his game like he used to be? No, I think he is. I know Dabo pretty well, and they haven't won like they had been winning. But I got a feeling if he made mistakes or if they're not doing something right, they'll correct it because he's pretty sharp guy. And with old Pinson Valley, wherever he's from, Pinson Valley or one of those right outside of one of the Birmingham towns, schools right in Birmingham. Yeah, I remember when I was at Auburn, he was a GA at Alabama. In fact, when I was at Samford, Dabo was the best letter writer. He was trying to get on anybody's staff because he was a young GA. He was playing. Then he was a graduate assistant. And he'd write those good letters trying to get on the staff. And then my brother Tommy finally hired him at Clemson back in those days. But I've seen his name around there for a few of these jobs. But Lane's hot. Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo is a guy that he's now publicly stated that he wants to get back in now. So he's been kind of standoffish about those kind of things publicly. He's been out 2 years now, and I think he's ready to go. I think it's been 2 years out, but he's ready to get back into coaching, and I guess he won't have to worry about. There's not a money issue now with those guys once they get out, but they go back in.
Look at Lane Kiffin. He was at Tennessee he was at the Raiders for a season and 4 games, at Tennessee for 1 season, USC for 3.5, FAU for 3, and then he's been at Ole Miss for 6. And here's the amazing thing: 3 out of the last 4 years, they've won 10 or more games, and you're looking at 4 out of the last 5 because they're probably going to get to 10 again. That's an amazing job at Ole Miss, especially when you look around the rest of the
Oh yeah, just look at them, who they hired, and they fired people before him for couldn't have winning seasons, But it's a tough. That was the one team that was Ole Miss. I was 6-0 against Ole Miss. That was one thing that we never lost to Ole Miss when I was there. And but they didn't quite have had as much weapons as a lot of the other teams in the conference. But now they will pay. I don't think anybody's going to outpay him, because I think whatever somebody else offers, they'll offer, because that's that's money in the bank. And with the money everybody's paying players now, paying $11 million as opposed to $9 million a year for your coach if he's that good, or 12. It's going to go $12 million a year, 13. I think Cignetti, that's about what it's going to go for him. And I think Ole Miss would probably, if he's, people have said he's really comfortable at Oxford. But I don't say this in a negative way, but whereas Kurt Cignetti, he signed that. Look how fast he signed he went public about 2 days later. I'm staying. And he went public. Kiffin's probably holding back on this thing, But my,
the other thing is, if you remember 2 years ago, Elko, I'm a little bit cautious now when somebody says that they're committed and they're staying. You look at Elko, he was at Duke 2 years ago, and he committed to an extension, and they announced the extension, and then less than a week later he went to A&M.
No, yeah. Well, you know what? Those extensions, but it goes both ways. When that school wants to get rid of you, they'll get rid of you. And if you want to leave, you'll find a way to get out. You'll pay whatever you got to pay, and every one of them now. And they've all got the same attorney, so they're all using the same agent, so they probably got some buyouts in there and involved with that situation there. But he's done a heck of a job at Texas A&M as well. Yes. As some of these other guys, but anyway, let's I want to go to Ashton Daniels. I mean, I don't. They officially made the announcement. I don't know, but I would think they're going to go with him in their next game. I think the season is this game is so important to me coming up at the Kentucky game that if there are any decisions they have to make, they don't need to wait, because, like I say, your final schedule, if you look at your games. You're going to be favored at Kentucky. With Kentucky, you're going to be favored with Mercer. I bet you're not favored against Vandy the way they're playing, and that quarterback is a sensational quarterback. And then Alabama right now.
Ninth ranked Vandy.
Who would have thought? Well, yeah, and you know what? And Missouri's about as good.
Yeah.
Missouri is they lost their quarterback, bad injury. He dislocated his ankle, and that would lost him for the rest of the year. But they're a gutsy team like Vandy. Their coach has done a great job. You know what? And there's a name we're not talking about a whole lot.
Okay.
Eli Drinkwitz is done a great job at Missouri. And Missouri is one of those where generally you're underdog 2 or 3 times there that you wouldn't be at Florida, or you wouldn't be maybe at LSU. And the job he has done there would say, now there's his record even I think is better than Lee Clark at Vandy. Lee had, and he's doing a great job, but he had 2 losing seasons. And then all of a sudden, Diego Pavia came in, and now they went 7-6, and now they've had 2 really good ones, as long as that's quarterbacks there, And so it's almost like the body of work. I need to see one more if he was. Now he went to Vanderbilt, and so that is a link. But I don't know that means you got to stay at Vanderbilt the rest of your life. That's where James Franklin was coaching before he got to Penn State, and there's a different level. And I will say this: I know when I was watching coaches develop and get up in the coach, when I was a graduate assistant, when I first started at West Virginia, Nick Saban was a defensive backfield coach, but I watched him move from school to school. And when he made the move from Michigan State to LSU, he was the smartest thing he did, because he's a heck of a coach, and whether we want to talk good about him or not, but he found a school that had the resources to do whatever he needed to do to win. He found LSU and he found Alabama. And there are a lot of schools that don't have the resources. Whatever you got to have, facilities, salaries for assistant coaches, whatever you got to have, they're going to come up with it. But they expect championships, and that's what he couldn't get at Michigan State. Wasn't going to happen, And I think even with the Dolphins, he could not get control down there. You don't quite have that control as a head coach in the NFL, and I don't think that worked out for him there.
I think the biggest thing was Drew Brees. Drew Brees couldn't pass his physical at Miami.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
The Chargers, he couldn't. He didn't. Miami wouldn't clear him, and the Saints did, and the Saints ended up winning the Super Bowl.
The rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Well, I know his eyesight was good, because I've never seen one more accurate than Drew Brees. I've never been around one. When I was at ABC Sports in New York after I left Auburn, I did a personal interest story. I flew out to Purdue and interviewed him before he was even. He was kind of a star he was just getting started at Purdue throwing that football. But it's interesting fellow, because nobody recruited him but Purdue. A little bit too short. Didn't have the analytics maybe, or all those things that you got to have to be what people think you got to be a quarterback. But anyway, it will be interesting. Well, what do we think about what does I mean, I don't have as much background every year. Ashton Daniels is he's not a bad looking quarterback now,
No, he looked pretty good, and he's got some talent, and I think this is going to be a big week for Kentucky too. I mean, all the talk is that Kentucky is set to fire Mike Stoops.
Yeah.
So that'd be another one, and it'd be a big win for him.
I know he's struggling there
Mm-hmm.
at Kentucky, but my thoughts are that they'll make that. I mean, it's not like I'm calling people up on the staff or do whatever that. My thoughts were having coached and saying, well, it's probably about time because the people get restless, and now this one the decision's got to be made, and say and they both have a lot of experience wherever they were. I think when you brought Daniels in, he was on that list of quarterbacks, maybe not the top guy, but he's a dual threat quarterback that can run and throw, and so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. As long as the defense continues to play good, just get a guy that can manage that offense and not make mistakes, and then I think the key will be don't take sacks, and distribute the ball, and that will be interesting how that goes. And they really, as you watch that game, really, I don't think it can be solved this year, but that physical running game that when you get to the red zone, you got to have it, or you get to third downs and you got to have it. I think it's just not there yet. And it's been a struggle to scoring points. And that means you got to play great defense every week. And Durkin has done that. And week in and week out, they play really good defense. And that's what's kept Auburn in the game and continued to keep them in the game. And so good win, an important win, and makes this Kentucky game really, really critical in this game.
And getting to a bowl game for Auburn is after the last 5 years. I mean,
you got to walk, but you got to crawl before you walk. You got to walk before you run, and
unless you're Terry Bowden at Auburn in '93.
No, yeah. Don't win them all at the beginning because there's only one direction to go. You can't win. You can't win more the next year. Although we tried, but I wouldn't trade it. Still wouldn't trade those times. And it'll be interesting here to see how Auburn does now if they can get this one. And I think they're honoring us, our teams against Mercer. I think I saw where the AD they announced 2 or 3 more national championship teams, and it's to me they're inviting other players back for some kind of recognition on the Mercer game. And
I knew there was some talk about it. I didn't see the announcement, but
I don't know if it's I know I got an email on it, and my mother's there. My mother, we've got her there. My sister's there. So, although I have to do podcasts throughout the week, and I'm usually in some kind of studio Fridays and Saturday morning, I'm probably going to be there for the Mercer game if I hear that for sure they're going to honor those players. Those players sure deserve it. And
Coach Wick called me last week about it, so I think that's it had not been announced, but he called me about it. So I think that's going to happen.
I think that's what they're going to. He called me too. I hadn't talked to Joe Witt for a while. We kind of retired, and he's probably taking care of horses back out at his farm, I imagine.
Horses and cows. That's what I did. In between class and going to practice, I was out there feeding dogs and horses and cows and you name it.
Well, we had some other good. How about other good games in the SEC? Some big ones that we've had that were had this past weekend, and some big wins. Biggest one, I guess, Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Where Ole Miss at this point in time, and I thought the distraction would probably even affect Lane a little bit because he's on social media. He does see what's on. Where some coaches, I don't think they're on social media quite as much, but. That big win for them. Alabama about got beat by Southern Cal. They came back and won that one.
Give them credit though. They I thought they were gonna. That's a hard place to play. So,
I know it is. William Bryce Stadium is very, and they were in a bad situation now. And what were they? They were down a couple of scores in the fourth quarter. I want to say 16 points or so, and came back and won that game. Still not quite like Texas and Mississippi State. Those don't have. They were down 31-14 with about 10 minutes left, and they won the game against
Mississippi State because they were looking for a. They're sitting there now. I mean, you lose that game in overtime the way they lost it. It's
Oh, it's
That's a
tough.
hard one for 'em.
And, and they won their first 2 or 3 games when they beat Arizona State. Yeah, I said, this guy's doing the best job in the country. They didn't win a conference game last year, and he took them over, and he had a long way to go. And then they start playing so well, and they barely lost to Tennessee, and beat Arizona State. And I thought, well, this guy's got it going, but I think they've lost 2 or 3 in a row now, and that one's a tough one there because that was one of those marquee game wins that you just want to have, that you don't get those like that very often. But that's that was a big win against them, that's for sure. And for Alabama, Tennessee had a great comeback and win. Tennessee won. Now the Missouri Vanderbilt game,
Great
I
game.
felt whoever had Pavia. To me, when I watched them play, and I've watched them a lot, I felt whoever has Diego Pavia is going to win this game. It's kind of like when I watched Georgia Tech play. Whoever has Haynes King is going to win. If they on the last 4 minutes of the game, they're either going to hold on the ball because of that quarterback, and the other team's not going to have a chance to get back on the field, or they're going to drive down and score. And you can almost pick Haynes King at Georgia Tech, and they're undefeated. And you can almost kick Diego Pavia is going to do it, and that's kind of what happened. They 10-10. They take the last drive, go down and score, and win the game. And but that's the kind of when you got a quarterback like that, you say, "Wow, that's just kind of guy that finds a way to help you win." And those are huge games for them. So a lot of good football being played there, and look forward to seeing that. So anyway. But anybody else nationally? I don't know. Anything else happened nationally that shake things up a little bit? I was trying to think. There's still some undefeated teams out there. Georgia Tech's undefeated still. Who all are the undefeated? Texas A&M, the only team in the SEC that's undefeated and undefeated in the conference. Alabama still.
Georgia Tech, BYU.
Yeah. Indiana and Ohio State. About 5 teams now. And BYU had a big win. They had a big win against Iowa State. Saturday, and so they've stayed undefeated. So it should be some good games, good teams that are continuing to play well. And it's a shame because coming up this week was the Penn State Ohio State. That was supposed to be a big one, and Penn State's kind of lost that one. They've lost that ability to make that a big game in that game. And so
you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 5 SEC teams in the top 10. And 2 of them are Ole Miss and Vandy.
Oh, I know. That people say, can you imagine what's happened out here? Hey, and then in the ACC, you got Duke and UVA's got 1 loss. Virginia has got 1 loss. Georgia Tech obviously have gotten themselves up with no losses. But you're seeing that around the country. You're seeing some of these teams that you couldn't quite have enough. They get NILs and they get a few players at their programs. And they're playing good football. UVA, now they've won 4 games in the last quarter, and 3 of them overtime. So they've won 3 games in overtime, and won another one Saturday in overtime against North Carolina, and won 4 games in the last series. And so that's a big year for them at UVA to have lost only 1 game. And that's the kind of year you want to have if you're going to turn that program around and get that kind of game. Indiana, I saw where they pounded UCLA for about 56. On them and about the way they have been playing. So good day for football. Good football that day there. And what we've got going on that situation. But it's interesting. I don't think there's going to be any more job. We got how many job openings right now?
We got 12. I'm sorry about that. No, we've got 12 right now. You pull up the. I've got my list here. You've got right now. Stanford, Virginia Tech, UAB, Oklahoma State, UCLA, Penn State, Kent State, Colorado State, Oregon State, Arkansas, Florida, LSU. And if you look at the ones that could open, you're looking at I would be surprised if they're less than 30, and it may be closer to 35 or 40 by the time it's over. And you've only got 130 something jobs.
Yeah, 130 jobs, 135 jobs at Division 1A. And I think nowadays, with the money they're paying, they're expecting results. And the thing about it is, if you pay somebody off that much money, and now that means you got to pay even more to get the next guy. Mm-hmm. And there's only a few guys that are in that category unless you decide to make them in that category, And the other ones, there's a little bit of a crapshoot because, you think of the guys that are John Summerall at Tulane, or the coach at USF or Memphis. These guys, Cincinnati, there's some guys that are doing a great job at these schools that with those kind of monies, they want a marquee name. The people that are putting that money out there, they want everybody to go after the same 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my jump list here. Guys that can move. I mean, and a lot of these guys aren't. You've got some big names. We mentioned Dabo earlier, Jimbo, James Franklin, Eli Drinkwitz, Brian Kelly, who a couple of those guys are already available. But you've got guys at Memphis, Navy, South Florida, Tulane, UTSA, North Texas. Those are your kind of your G5.
G5 guys that are really deserving of a shot. Yeah. And in this day and age, I'm not sure there are a lot of schools out there that, like Florida, they made the move for Billy Napier. They went down to Louisiana Lafayette, ULL, and it didn't work out.
And I don't think they can do that this time.
No, I said they won't. And a lot of people say I can't afford to make that kind of move, And I do think if you're going to go down there, you need a body of work. You can't. I think you'd probably need one more job to show that you've been successful. I always like to see a coach that has been successful at a couple of places. I know when I was talking about the coach Leopold at Kansas, I coached against him at Buffalo. But the guy wins 6 national championships at Wisconsin Whitewater. Well, you say that's Little League. Well, he had Little League players playing against other Little Leaguers. It was just as tough to win there. Then he goes to Buffalo and has winning season about every year there. That's a hard place to win. Yeah. Then he goes to Kansas and jumps out. I said, well, that's a great hire, because I think he's struggling. He's lost some close games this year, but he's done a pretty good job of being one of those coaches that came up through the ranks that way, But that's with the money they're paying right now. There's not a lot of schools that are going to dish out that much money. And those ADs, if they make the wrong move, they're the next one to go. I didn't realize the ADs are making a couple of million a year too now. You
look at a guy like Jerry Kill. He deserves a lot of credit. He won it at he's won everywhere he's been.
Everywhere he's been,
and won at Minnesota and won at New Mexico State and he's a consultant at Vandy now, and he brought Pavia with him, and so he deserves a lot of credit, I think.
Oh, I know that, and that's I'm not sure. And Jerry Kill has done a great job most of it. And it's funny you mentioned Minnesota. PJ Fleck is one. People down here don't know PJ. I coached against him at Western Michigan, and that sucker is a heck of a football coach now, and he's got a little edge to him too now. PJ, but he is a very, very good coach, and I'm sure he's making good salary at Minnesota, but there is another level to go. And he's a Midwesterner. I don't know that way down south that we're as familiar with coaches that are in the Midwest or at other places, but he's one that's being very, very successful there. And his name gets mentioned around up in the at that part of the country, as opposed to being just down south. So
and the other thing these schools have to keep in mind is all the fans that want to make a coaching change. And again, I'm not defending anybody, and I'm not calling for anybody to lose a job or anything else, but I know how frustrating it can be if you're on Hugh Freeze's staff.
Yeah,
and you've been there 2.5 seasons, and you get fired. We were really, really close at Florida. I mean, really, really close.
Yeah, sure. As
proven by what happened after we left. I think Hugh Freeze and his staff feel like they're really, really close.
Well, they are. I mean, to me, they'd be crazy right now. They need first of all, you don't need the noise, the negatives. You don't need the negative. But I will say this: having sat in those stands against Georgia and going through a tough loss, and then watching that stadium fill back up the next week, and they went through a loss. And I said, there's a great commitment by the fans at Auburn. And right now, you hear people talk. That's the nature of people. But he's so close. I mean, we've had every team that he's lost to has been ranked, and every loss has been 10 or less points. Now you've got to fix some things. I mean, but I think if it get to a bowl this year, continue to recruit like he knows how to recruit, and And then make sure you've got a good plan for offense. I'm not sure I would stay. I think for the second year in a row, I think he needs to look at that situation. What are we doing? Can we do something better? Because there are guys that are good. You got to score points. You got to be defense first. Great defense. Then you got to be able to play offense, and that includes running the football. Running the football, smart quarterback. You don't have to have a great NFL quarterback, but you got to have one that can manage your football team. The two of the best winners were Pavia and Pradula at Missouri were not NFL type guys. They're just winners. And I look at all my quarterbacks, and Pat Nix was as good a winner as you could possibly have. And usually, if they're not NFL caliber, they're great coaches. Which is what most of my quarterbacks have been, great coaches.
And look, before you got to Auburn, I mean, you remember Jeff Berger. I mean, he was a tough son of a gun.
Oh, sure he was.
And Reggie Slack. I mean, there were a bunch of guys that came through there that, they weren't NFL guys, but they could certainly play.
They can play football, great leaders and tough guys. Yes, and I think that's what you got to find the right guy. And but if you do, and the team rallies around them, and it'll make your offense, because you got to play good on both sides of the ball. And I felt like even here in Louisiana, I said that about LSU, or even early. I said you're not productive enough on offense. You hired a good defensive coordinator. You're playing good defense, but every now and then you got to outscore people. That's why I've said Texas A&M has had such a great year. They got Notre Dame scores 40, they get 41. Mm-hmm. Auburn scores 10, they got 16. Mississippi against Arkansas got 42, they got 45. So they can beat you defensively, but if they have to, they can score points, which is what they did against LSU this past weekend, because they were losing at halftime. I want to say they were losing to LSU at halftime, and they just poured it on. I mean, they poured it on in the second half.
But in Baton Rouge.
What's that? Oh, no. That's probably why that decision was probably made a little bit after that game, because it happened in Baton Rouge. They've lost a couple at home now this year, and but they at Texas A&M's done a great job of having Elko's done a great job, because he's a defensive guy. He was a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, defensive guy at Duke, I think, as he took over for Manny Diaz.
Left Notre Dame, went to A&M, and then went to Duke.
That's right.
And then went to A&M.
And yet he took that quarterback that was kind of close to being a really good one, and really done a great job with Marcel Reed at quarterback, a great dual threat quarterback, and that seems to be the way most offenses want to go now. If they can get a guy that can be a good dual threat, doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be a great runner, but a smart runner. There's a lot of good ones out there that aren't great runners. It's what surprises me about Pavia. He's not a super fast guy, but he's always fast enough. He really does an outstanding job of running that football. And
one thing about Ashton Daniels, I think he can manage the game. I mean, if you look back over the beginning of the season, if Jackson Arnold could just manage the game and not make some mistakes, Auburn's probably sitting here, with 1 or 2 losses max.
But,
and
you're right. I mean, and I think when you look back on it, I don't know that Jack Arnold has anybody to blame. And I don't say this in a negative way. I said, but there are things he continued to do, whether it would be to sit in that pocket too long and take 1 or 2 sacks he didn't need to take. The interception he threw Saturday, it was a ball he should have thrown away, or not thrown at all. You don't throw the RPO if it's not a gimme. And what happens at Auburn is they disguise. They're going to fake you into it. They're going to play soft on your wide out. So when you hand that, so they want you to throw it, and then they're going to break on it. And when you're throwing, faking to the left and throwing to the right, you got a split second there where you lose sight of it. And but just not a good decision. But I was going to pull up. I had the stats on Ashton Daniels are pretty dang good. Let me see if I can find for him. See if I can find it. I wrote it. I pulled it up, because as a true freshman at Stanford, he runs a Wildcat. He was their Wildcat quarterback and ran Wildcat. And he started as a sophomore. Ran as their leading rusher. They rushed for 600 something yards at Stanford. And threw for over 2,000. He's a single season rushing record at Stanford, 669 yards rushing as a quarterback at Stanford. And I don't know if we all give this a lot of credit, but he graduated from Stanford in 3 years, That seems like to me that'd be a pretty smart guy that can graduate in 3 years at Stanford and be playing a lot of football. And so, I mean, shoot, you're not going to be any. It's it came in and let us down to 3 field goals and 3 straight scores, and we won the game. I think it was like 6 of 8 passes, maybe just through 8 passes or so.
Yeah, 6 of 8.
Yeah.
77 yards.
Yep.
You know,
but that's kind of what he had to do, and so he did a good job doing that. And so I think I think it's a spark. When you need to have a spark, sometimes you got to do something just to create a spark. And I think that's what happened yesterday with the quarterback situation, Saturday. And that's probably what you'll see going with them down the road. I think it probably wouldn't be. And then you have to be the quarterback has to be able to have himself ready, because then you've got to if the other guy gets hurt or it doesn't pan out, you got to come back and find a way. But I think Hugh Freeze is at that point where has to what my quarterback, my backup gave me a spark, and look what the guy did at Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss was Ferris State. They truly did pick him up as just an extra quarterback. That they got him for a good price. He was on his way to, I think the only people who offered him at the time was Temple. He was going to go to Temple, and then I think Ole Miss found him that last week or so and changed his mind real quick. To go to Ole Miss. But look what they've done with him.
What's unbelievable? I think
he tore Texas. He was all. Oklahoma had no answer, and neither did Georgia. No. Up until the last 2 drives against Georgia, he had just I thought it was 6 straight touchdown drives, 6 times, or maybe 5 straight touchdown drives, and then he was 3 and out the very last 2 plays. And then against Oklahoma, with one of the best defensive coordinator head coaches around, Brent Venables, he was calm, cool, and collected. And really, really just kind of got that guy. You made a good choice with that quarterback. In doing
How do you see this week?
What's that?
How do you see this week with Kentucky?
Kentucky, I've watched them play. They can make this a close ball game. I think the 9 points, it makes it interesting. I'm right now saying that's about that break-off point right there. Not because Kentucky will play good. They just won't score much. And I think they have not had a lot of success. They've had to jump around with quarterbacks and haven't had a lot of success there.
And there was
almost beat Texas.
And there were a lot of rumors that they were going to fire the offensive coordinator last week. I saw him calling plays though Saturday, so I guess they didn't fire him.
Well, yes, I don't think Stoops is going to call the offensive plays, but that's kind of what they have not been real strong offensively this year, and so I think this is a great chance. But I think, but I still said the fact that we've got, if we don't score points a little bit more, it's all tough games. And it's all, I like the under. The under is 46.5. I think it's 46.5 is the over under. And I almost like the under. I could see more of a, 23 to 20 or 17, type of game, against this in this game. And
I think he's had a hard time. In SEC games, they've scored 23, 13, 14, 13, and they scored 34 against Tennessee. But other than that, they've had a problem.
They had a problem scoring points, and Auburn has too. Auburn's had to struggle to score points, and so that might be the better pick. Taking the under in that game, but it should be pretty good. I think right now it's a big. All I know is I have it circled as one of the big games for Auburn because of the way the schedule's coming out. You got to go to Vanderbilt. You got Kentucky and Mercer at home. And to Vanderbilt, and the Alabama's at home, and Alabama's in that home this year, and Alabama's at home. Yeah, you got Missouri. Who do you know? You got Vandy and who on the road? You got 4 games. Maybe it's just what's that?
I believe
Vandy. We've already had. I don't what I was talking. We've already played. No, we haven't played Vandy yet. We got Vandy, don't we?
Let's see. Remaining schedule is Kentucky at home, at Vandy, Mercer, and Alabama at home.
Yeah. Okay. All right, very good.
Only away game you got left is.
That's right. You got 3 home games left over, and Vandy's going to be in Nashville, and so the schedule's not too bad. But this one ends up being really important. I think. I just think it's a home game, night game.
And if you win this one, then you never know what happens at Vandy, and then you beat Mercer, and
Do you get this one? Because again, and everybody knows what the Alabama game every year. That one's a dogfight, and it's a dogfight every year. And Alabama has already shown South Carolina took them. About beat them. So they can be had. It's not like they are. They've got a good record. They've got 7 straight wins now after that first loss, but they've had some tight ball games and won some close ball games. And so that it's not like they're knocking everybody, knocking the ball, knock everything out of the park every week. And so, but this week we got one game at a time. Kentucky's critical. Yep. I'll be anxious to see what happens with the quarterback situation. I would think he would come out pretty early if he hadn't already said it. And I was traveling all day Sunday, and I didn't get to see any press conferences or anything with these guys. But I would imagine it will be they'll make a decision pretty soon, I think. So they get that behind them. So your practice schedule is pretty set and things like that, and doing that one with everybody there.
Before we go, I think we got a few games this week. We got Vandy at Texas.
Shoot.
An early kick.
Okay, well, you know how Vandy's going to play. You know how Bobby is going to play. You don't know how Texas is going to play. Now, I think that Archie got hurt, and I don't know they took him. He had I don't know if he got a concussion, but he got hit and had to come out of the game. And the backup, I want to say, the backup did a pretty good job. I want to say he got taken out of the game a little bit at the end. The backup came in and finished it off, and I could be wrong, but I was trying to think he did. But anyway, that should be Vandy is just they're going to play. They're going to play good every week. And that quarterback is so confident, he's going to find a way to beat you. I'm not maybe not the score, but on every other play and every series, he's got a way to do it. So he makes them very, very good. The style of offense that they have. So in Texas, they've just been a hot and cold team.
Texas is favored at home by 1.5 over.
Is that where they are? See, that's probably a credit to just the way they play it at Vandy and the way they're playing. Because they're just a great team, and a team that runs a spread offense or a spread option like they do, they take a team that's more talented and with good faking and good misdirection, they get defense going the wrong way, wasting motion and wasting effort going the wrong way a lot. So that's what Vandy keeps them in the football game. So that should be a good one. I mean, how much is it? 1.5?
1.5
in Texas. God, isn't it bad that we're all? How can you take Vandy, but how can you not take Vandy? That's what's so tough. Because when you've been in the SEC as long as we have, and you followed the SEC, we'll say, "Hey, no way, no way, Vandy can go down there to Texas and beat them." Yet they'll find a way. I'm not ready to pick it, but I wouldn't be shocked if Vandy didn't go down there and get the job done. Kentucky almost got them when they played them. And but I would have a hard time pulling against Vandy. Two guys, and we don't follow the ACC much here, but I cover the ACC. I have a hard time picking against Georgia Tech because they got the same type of quarterback. He finds a way. He runs and passes and finds a way. Who else we got? We got coming up this weekend.
Got the cocktail party in Jacksonville with Georgia and Florida, and got Georgia by 7.5.
7.5. Well, out Florida has got talent that can compete with anybody in the conference, and they play very, very good defense. Now the question is going to happen is how much can you motivate? Can you keep your kids up and ready to go? And so much has happened with the staff. I think they'll play well, and I'm not ready to take it to pick them to win the game. What you say? It's 7, 6.5, 7.
The line is Georgia by 7.5. That's a weird game, though. It's a great game. It's a 50-50 tickets and
I know.
Having experience down there for 3 years, it's a really special game. I had never been a part of it until I coached down there, but it's a fun game.
It'll be interesting. I probably have a hard time going against Georgia right now with all that's on the line there. But that line's about right. Defensively, Florida can hang with them. If their quarterback got hot, anything can happen. Lagway. But I think Georgia right now is they've had to fight their way, claw their way back all year, and I think they're getting themselves back. So I kind of think Georgia probably going to get that one. I'd take them in the 7, I think.
And Mississippi State at Arkansas, Hogs by 4.5.
Well, that no matter how much they lose, they play so good offensively. They got a chance to score it. And Mississippi State's struggling right now. I think I'd take the Hogs 4.5. That was a tough loss they had this past week. I think
He's going to get somebody. He's going to get somebody.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that he's also auditioning a little bit. He needs to keep them fighting, and I think they will. I think they'll keep fighting because they've played pretty good week in and week out. It was amazing how once things turned at that game Saturday, turned over. They couldn't help it though. Interception, fumble, 3 straight times after that pick six that we had. That Pleasant had, then they had a fumble, interception, and I want to say, no, 3 of them, yeah. That was after the pick six. They had 3 turnovers after that, 4 total turnovers, and it was just couldn't get it turned back around. But I like Arkansas versus Mississippi State. I think I'd ride that one and think they'll get one there. Just they're playing too good a football. It's been a tough year for them. They're a good football team.
We got South Carolina at Ole Miss, and they got Ole Miss by 12.5.
Boy, if it's when you talk points and all that, and I believe South Carolina has probably been the biggest disappointment this year. I think with the quarterbacks they had and the defense they had coming back, they have just not been good. And they had that game against Alabama won, and they gave up all those points in the fourth quarter, and so in that game, so that they have struggled, but. Now, who was it against? They were playing who?
Ole Miss. South Carolina at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I like Ole Miss. Hard to pull against right now. The Ole Miss, the way they're rolling, rocking and rolling, and it's amazing. And a lot of times this happens. There were really no wild expectations at Ole Miss this year. Last year they were picked so high because they did have great talent. Best defensive front in the country, probably. They led the nation. Defense against the run, outstanding. I watched them. I went over there and watched the Georgia Ole Miss game, and they had the best talent on the field. That Jackson Dart and the defense, they had physically a better team than Georgia did and beat them 28-10. And it wasn't real close. They knocked Carson Beck out pretty early in that game. But Ole Miss is kind of on a roll, and Lane's going to have his team looking good, I bet. So I think South Carolina just got to try to survive this year, try to get through the year. And there's another name that I guess he doesn't want to talk about Virginia Tech, but there'll be people behind the scenes wanting to get him back to where his dad was, no Shane Beamer.
And he keeps talking about South Carolina as his dream job, and he wanted it, and maybe that's the case. We'll see. But I mean, there's going to be so much movement.
South Carolina is a tough job. I mean, it means Virginia Tech's in the ACC now, and I mean, my dad always said, "I said, well, don't you wish you were in the SEC?" He said, "No." I said, "I can win the ACC about every year." I said, "I want to play those guys when I'm playing for a championship." And a little bit's true at South Carolina as far as it's an uphill battle usually at South Carolina to be competitive for the conference championship in the SEC. Whereas at Virginia Tech, they were year in and year out with his father. We're very, very competitive in the ACC. It's just there's no way you can compare to me the strength of the two conferences from top to bottom. It's just not. I mean, there's some great games. I've enjoyed watching Virginia and Georgia Tech. Wake Forest is playing really well, and these teams are all playing very well. But it's still not quite the league, that we're seeing in the SEC week in and week out with the talent that the SEC has and the commitment there.
And the last game in the SEC this week is you got Tennessee by 3.5 at home over Oklahoma.
Yeah, boy, I don't know what to think about Oklahoma now. Tennessee, I don't know. I don't know what to think about Oklahoma right now. I
do think that and it didn't show up too much with Texas last year. Of course, they did have the easiest schedule in the conference, but I do think that Oklahoma and Texas are kind of getting a feel for what it's like to go through the grind of
this conference. Absolutely. I mean, you get through playing Ole Miss, all of a sudden you got to play Tennessee, and Tennessee's got football players, and they're going to score points. I was thinking Oklahoma. I'm kind of leaning towards Tennessee, except I don't get 2 good games in a row off of a team. Oklahoma, I had them I had Venables just going all after that quarterback. I figured they're going to cut their scoring in half at Ole Miss, and they couldn't do it. And so, and if they couldn't do it against them, that little quarterback throws the ball real well too at Tennessee right now. Joey Aguilar is a heck of a guy. I coached against him. He played against me when he was at App State and I was at ULM, and scored about 40 on us. Very, very good quarterback. But it's at Tennessee. You say it's in Nash. It's in yeah. I think I'm gonna have to go with Tennessee on that one. Got to go with Tennessee.
Well, Coach, I think that's it for this week.
All right, sounds great. Sounds great. I promised Willie Anderson and Wayne Gandy. I saw them at the Auburn Georgia game, and I promised I'd get them on our show. So we'll kind of get Willie talk a little football with Willie and Wayne maybe next week.
That sounds great. Let's talk about our sponsor.
Let's talk about Tom Haley, the Haley Family Foundation, Haley Red Development Company right there in Auburn. They're Auburn people. The Haley family has been a part of Auburn for 50 years, and they support with scholarships and monies. Can't say enough about Tom Haley and the whole family, what they've meant to our program. They sponsor our show and what they've meant to us. And so, again, just want to thank Tom and Haley Red Development Company for their support for this show each week.
And I believe our time's up.
All righty.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Click like and subscribe below, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.